In a recent survey that I did it with my audience, I asked a simple question. What is it that you find it incredibly hard with DAX? And nearly 50% of the people replied that they find it hard to translate the business logic into Power BI using the DAX language. As a response to that, I'm starting this new business series, which is where I will talk about practical applications of Power BI in a practical business scenario. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about one such case, which is price volume mix analysis in Power BI. Now, this kind of price volume mix analysis is very near and dear to any senior management, maybe a CFO, because it tells them that what strategic decisions that they have to take on the price and the volume in order to grow the revenue, the profits, the margins, things like that. Specifically, I will talk about what and why of the price volume mix. I will talk about the raw fundamentals and the principles of calculating price volume mix. And I will also talk about the nuances that you have to keep in mind when you practically apply such logics into Power BI, and perhaps we'll also do a few calculations and implement the entire thing into Power BI. If you've always wanted to know that how do you do price volume mix analysis in Power BI, this is the video that you would want to watch until the end. Stick around. The basic premise of doing price volume calculations is when a company is getting growth in the revenue, they would want to find out that what percentage of the growth came from pricing change decisions. That means you made a change to the pricing of the product. How much of that growth came from volume change decision because you sold more or less of certain product, and how much of that was a mix. That means it came partially through the price change and partially through the volume change. Now, these three critical factors, the price impact, the volume impact, and the mix of price and volume impact, are three fundamental parts of price volume mix analysis. Before we actually move on to do these calculations in Power BI, I want to talk about that what are the bare fundamentals of the calculation and how is the math structured to do these things. In case you already know price volume mix, there are timestamps in this video. You can skip around and see the relevant parts of the video. In case you've been tasked to do price volume mix, you have to first understand what is it and what is the math behind it. In order to understand the fundamental math behind price volume mix analysis, let's just draw a figure and hopefully you will understand and make sense of it. So let's just say that I am working with the simple chart. On the x-axis right here, we have the quantity, and on the y-axis right here, this is where we have the price of the product. Now let's just say any particular company is selling perhaps 100 units of a particular product, and the price that they sell it at is at $5. If I want to find out that what has been my sales, I am actually going to do the quantity, which is 100, multiply by 5, and that is going to give me my sales, which is 500. So that area is nothing but my selling area. If the next year the company raises the number of products sold, that means they start selling not 100 but 200 units, and they start selling at not 5 but $10 a pop, then the area is going to be this much right here, and the sales are going to be nothing but 200 multiplied by 10, which is going to be 2000 right here. If I want to know that what has been my growth has been all of the differential area right here. This has been my growth, which is nothing but 2000, the sales of the current year, minus the sales of the last year. This is CY and that is LY. Sales of the last year is 500, and that is going to give me 1500 of the growth, which is this shaded area right here. Now comes the fundamental question. Okay, you grew by 1500, which is your absolute growth. How much of that growth can you allocate to price changing decisions just because you changed the price? That means the price moved up from 5 to 10. How much of growth just came from price changing decisions? And the way to find that out is that I take this particular area, which is this area only, which is the price change that happened, and I keep the quantity the same, which is 100. So if I were to mathematically calculate that, I will say, hey, take the quantity of the last year, which is quantity last year, which is 100, and take the price difference. That means from 5 to you move to 10. So I will say current year price minus the last year price, which is going to be $5. This is 10 and this is 5. This is going to give me a 5. So 100 into 5 is going to give me 500. That means this area, which is right here, is nothing but the growth that came just because you changed the price of the product, and this is nothing but that. The second most fundamental question is that, okay, let's just now isolate the price and talk about the quantity. what is the growth in the revenue just because you sold more, assuming that you sold it at the same price. Now, in this scenario, I'm talking about this particular area. We sold more, we went from 100 to 200, and what has been the growth? So I'm actually talking about this particular area, which is where I sold it at the same price, which is 5. But what has been this particular portion if I did not change the price and only changed the quantity? And to be able to do that calculation, I would have to do what? I would have to say, hey, I would want to find out the difference in the quantity. So current year quantity and the last year quantity, I will take the difference of the two. So current year quantity is 200, last year quantity is 100, and the difference is nothing but 100. Now this 100 is sold at the last year price, which is 5. I multiply that with 5 right here, which is the last year price, LY price. And this is going to give me 500 right here. That means another 500 came just because we sold more of the product if we kept the price the same, which is nothing but this particular area right here. And this 500 is nothing but your volume impact. Now comes the question that now that we changed both, we changed a little bit of the price, we changed a little bit of the quantity, what has been the change in the revenue because you changed the price and you changed the quantity both, which is nothing but this particular area, which is nothing but changes due to quantity and the price, and this is nothing but your volume mix. And how do we actually find out the volume mix? So we have to find out this, what is this, and this is nothing but my price change, and what is this? This is nothing but my volume change. So if I take the current year volume minus the last year volume, sometimes I'm writing volume, sometimes I'm writing quantity, but that's all right, and I multiply that with the current year price minus the last year price, this calculation is going to give me the volume change. So what is the current year volume? That's 200. And what is the last year volume? That is 100. 200 minus 100 gives me 100. What is the current year price? The current year price is 10 bucks. The last year price is 5 bucks. And this is actually going to give me 5. And 100 into 5 is going to give me 500. And 500 is nothing but the mix impact, which came just because you changed the volume and you changed the price. If you were to break down your growth in the revenue, in order to find out how much more money are you making from price changes, volume changes, and mix changes, you can take strategic decisions about pricing the products, selling more volumes, or doing both of them. At the moment, the price volume analysis that I'm discussing in this video is pretty elementary and basic just to help you get started. But if you would like to know that how would you do a price volume mix in a real-time setting with complex data sets, multiple products, multiple categories, we've done that work for a lot of our clients as a part of consulting project, and it typically looks something like this. Not only would you have the price and the volume and the mix, so we have the price impact, the volume impact, and the mix impact, but there are other factors that you can add it as well. That what has been the impact of new products, products that were not sold, any kind of return impact, and then what is my current sales of the current month and things like that. So you can have as many branches added and as many layers of complexity added. In case you're interested to explore our consulting work, please do not hesitate to reach out via a form. It's really simple. You can just fill it up and our team is going to call you as soon as possible. All right, back to the tutorial. But price volume mix is more nuanced because at the moment I just talked about one product and its quantity in the current year and the last year. But this is not how most companies run. Most companies run in a more sophisticated way where they not only have products but category of products, multiple products. And then you have to do price volume mix analysis. Some nuances change between price volume mix when you're doing it on a lot of products. And the next thing I want to talk about in a more practical example, again with the numbers, that how does it change when you have multiple products to sell. Now I've built the calculation just as the way that I built it last time when we were dealing with single products. I'm going to talk about a few nuances and how the questions also change when you're dealing with multiple products. Please take a look. So I've got two simple products right here. In the previous year, this is all of the previous year, we had two products, shoes and slippers. They were being sold at 50 bucks and 35 bucks. We sold 200 and 250, and this is the sales that we got. All right. And in the current year, we did not change the price of shoes and slippers, the same products, again sold at 50 and 35, just as the last year, but we did change the volume. That means 200 200 went all the way up to 300 units, and 250 for slippers went down to 150 units. All right, and that's the sales for the current year and sales for the last year, and this is nothing but my growth. So the growth calculation is nothing but take the sales of the current year minus last year, and this is nothing but your growth. Now the question is, if I total all of this growth up, we actually got about 1500 of extra money. That means if you take the current year minus the last year, you're going to get 1500. Now comes the same question. How much of this growth came from price changes? How much of this growth came from volume changes? And how much of this growth came from mix changes, price and volume both? Now if you take a look at the prices of both the products actually remained the same. So none of the growth actually came from price changes because we did not even change the price of the products. Therefore, the price impact is zero. And if you want to take a look at the formula, it's the same formula. Take the difference of the price, current year minus last year, and multiply that with the previous year. And you can recall that with the diagram that we just made. And if you take a look at the volume impact, and we sold more units. So we sold 200 units here, we sold 300 units here, and therefore we sold 100 more units. Even if we sold it at the same price, which is the price of the last year, we are looking at a 5,000 impact and a 3,500 impact. And that is nothing but the $1,500 impact. Now, there is no mix change because if you think about it, we did not raise the price. And because we did not raise the price, the difference between 50 and 50 is 0, and if you multiply 0 with any change in the quantity, the mix impact is going to be 0. Now here is the different question that you would ask, that if you take a look at the total quantity of the products sold, which is shoes and slippers, perhaps they are made the same way, not very different, the total quantity is just 400. You sold 450 units last year and you sold 450 units the same year. So the total volume impact across all the products that you're selling hasn't changed. It's the same quantity last year and the same quantity current year. So technically speaking, if I'm taking a look at the volume mix on a total level of all of the products that I have, I should be actually getting 0. So 450 here and 450 here, no change in the volume, and this number should not be 1500. This number should technically be a 0 because overall I have sold the same number of units. But we should actually take a look at some mix impact right here. Let me help you understand what do I mean by that. If you think about it, in terms of the price, shoes are definitely more expensive, which is 50 bucks, and the slippers are just 35 bucks. And if you think about it, shoes, which are more expensive products, the sale went up from 200 to 300, and slippers, which are 250 bucks, the cheaper products, they went down from 250 to 150 bucks. That means we are selling more expensive products, and therefore we have a mix change. That means we sold more of expensive products in the current year that led to the change in the revenue. So when you're taking a look at multiple products, what you're trying to take a look at are 3 different things, and the decisions change slightly. The price change is the same. At what extra price have you charged, being the volume the same as the last year. When it comes to volume, you would ask the question, hey, have I sold more volume as compared to the last year average price of the products? That means I would have to find the average price of the products as compared to the last year. So whatever average, I have it right here. I will then have to find out that what extra have I sold, that means number of units, compared to the average and not the previous year's price. And when it comes to mix, the question becomes, hey, can you tell me, am I selling more expensive products as compared to the last year? That is what I would want to see, and therefore the price volume mix analysis when it comes to multiple products changes slightly because you want to take a look at the overall picture of all the products sold in all the categories and things like that. Now that you've understood this, let's just revise the mathematics here and try to come up with the right numbers right here. So my price calculation is going to be the same. My volume calculation is not going to be hinged on the price of the last year. However, it's going to be hinged on an average price. So I'm going to find an average right here. So I'm going to say, hey, what's the average of these 2 products? Press enter, and the average is 42.5. And I'm going to say that the volume, which is whatever extra that you have sold, how much extra have you sold as compared to the last year's average pricing of the products, which is nothing but this particular number. So instead of multiplying that with 50, I will multiply that with 42.5, and I will cancel that out, and I will multiply that right here. I will lock the cell as well. Press enter and drag it down. And now you're going to see that because I'm multiplying that with the average or the base price, which is an average of the last year, my volume doesn't reflect, like I have not grown in volume, because the volume of the last year, total volume of the last year was 450. The volume of the current year at the total level when I have multiple products is again 450. So I have not made any change when it comes to total volumes in the current year. So hence the volume impact is zero. Now comes the mix impact. Now mix impact is you find out that how much has the price grown, how much has the volume grown, and then you multiply the two. Now in this scenario, since we are taking averages, I would have to find out how much has the price grown as compared to the average product pricing last year. So I want to find out that if shoes is 50 and across all the products the average last year was 42, then in the current year I have sold $8 extra. So I'm just going to go ahead and subtract this from the average pricing of the last year and lock this part and press enter and drag this formula down. And you can see that now we sold shoes which were a more expensive product, and therefore we sold a more expensive product slightly more. We got the mix impact of 750. That means we made extra 750 here. And this is also where we made 750 extra. Now, why would we make 750 extra? Because slippers, if you take a look right here, is 35 bucks, which is cheaper as compared to the average pricing of the last year. And we have sold lesser number of that. So we sold more expensive product. Hence, we got the gain of 1500. That means the pricing changes came strategically because you chose to sell more expensive products and not the cheaper products, and therefore you have the growth in revenue of 1500. Note that whatever is the growth number right here, this particular number is going to tally with the total impact. Total impact is nothing but the price plus the volume plus the mix is going to tally up with this number. So 1500 is equal to the total impact, which is nothing but this number. Now, once you've understood this particular logic and reasoning, what you do when you have multiple products, let's just practically implement this in Power BI. From here on, once you've understood the logic becomes incredibly simple to work with, and we will build the entire model in a jiffy. Stick around. All right, if you take a look at the data model, we are working with a very simple data model. We have the sales table, we have the calendar table, and we have the products table. I'm sure you can set it up and we can start working on a similar case like this. Now, in the products table, the granularity is one single SKU or one single product key or product code. And in the sales table, the granularity is nothing but my orders. That means one row is nothing but one order. And we also have the quantity of how much is ordered. We have the price of the product. Multiplying these two is going to give me total sales. So let's just start creating some measures. And I built a very simple base pivot table right here. The product key is coming off from my products table on which I have applied a year filter 2019. So once I'm taking a look at 2019, I will take a look at my current year sales, my last year sales, so on and so forth. And we have two categories of products, accessories and clothing, on which not a filter is applied as of yet. I'm going to start off by creating a simple measure, which is sales current year. So whatever is your sales table, go inside that, multiply the products into quantity, and that is going to give you the sales of the current year. And let's just commit on this measure. I'm going to drag this measure off to my pivot table, and that's what we get. The next measure that I'm going to create is nothing but sales previous year. What has been a sales previous year? I referenced the very same measure, which is sales current year. Find out the same period last year of the calendar date. Nothing that complicated. Press enter, and we are good to go. And that goes in the pivot table as well. After we've calculated the sales current year and the previous year, it's time now to calculate growth, and the growth measure can look something like this. I'm saying, hey, if the current year sales and the previous year sales are present, that means they both can be visible in the pivot table. I would then want to find out that what is my current year sales minus my last year sales. This is going to give me an absolute growth. That measure also goes inside of the pivot table and looks something like this. Now comes our critical calculations. That means if my growth is all of this across the products and across this the entire year, then I would like to spread this growth out in three critical parts. How much of this growth is coming from price changes, volume changes, and mix changes, and the logic is going to be spread out across multiple products. Let's just start to build one piece at a time. Now, in order for me to build out the price changes, I need the price and the volume both. So I'm going to start to create measures. To be able to create the price of the product in the current year, all that I can do is I can say, hey, take the selected product and find out the price for that. So selected value, sales price. I'm going to drag that off to my pivot table, and that is nothing but my price change. The next calculation that I want to do is price previous year. So I will say, hey, whatever is the price current year, please shift the dates to the respective last year using the calendar date, same period last year function. And if I drag that off to my visual, I'm going to get the price of the products in the last year as well. Similar two calculations, I can do it for the volume current year and volume previous year. So volume current year is nothing but the sum of the order quantity, and drag that off to the visual. And volume previous year is nothing but the same volume current year, which is this particular number, and same period last year in the last respective year. And this is what we get as the volume of the last year. Now comes our first calculation, which is price impact. That means how much did we make extra just because we changed the price. So if you take a look at the first product, which is 214, you're going to see that we changed the price by 20 bucks. So last year price was 470. The current year price is 490. So the price changes has been 20. And if this 20 was applied on the last year volume, that means this particular number, I'm going to get a number which is nothing but 20 multiplied by 4020, and that is going to be nothing but my price impact. If you want to take a look at the formula of the price impact, I'm saying, hey, take the difference of the price current year, take the difference of the price in the previous year. That means take the difference of these two products, multiply that with the volume of the previous year, which is this particular number, and then sum all of it up. Now, I've used the SUMX function in the products table primarily so that the totals at the bottom come up right, because at the moment, the granularity of the calculations is nothing but the product level, right? So I'm going to go ahead and just drag this calculation off to my visual, and you can see that 4020 when multiplied by the difference of 20 right here is going to give me 80,400, and this number is right. Next comes the volume impact. That means how much has changed because of solely changing the quantity of the products. So now if you take a look at the volume of the current year, the volumes have increased. So you can see that the volumes have increased, but that change in the volume, which is the volume difference, the current year volume and the last year volume, you will not multiply it with the last year price, but you will multiply it with the average price of the last year. That means I would have to find the average of all of these prices of the products, and that is going to be my average price of the products last year, and then I will be multiplying it with that. Now here is a slight nuance. If you think about it, these three products are very highly priced. So that means 490, 500 and 525, like pretty highly priced. And these products are low price products. That means these could be different categories of products, different buckets of products, high price products and low price products. That means this analysis that I am doing at the moment, I'm probably going to do it for the category or a bucket of certain class of products. And that actually explains to me that why do I have a filter up on the top. I'm going to commit on this measure anyways, and I have a filter on the top, accessories and clothing. So if I take a look at the accessories right here, accessories are way more expensive, and you can see that, and clothing is kind of cheap, and that is the prices of the clothing. So if I just take a look at the accessories right here, I've also written a measure of the average price. I can show you that. So average price last year, I'm saying, hey, why don't you take a look at all the products, that means all of these products, and find the price and average that up. That's my average X formula. If I drag this formula off to my visual, you're going to see that I get the average price last year. That means 490, 505, 425. If averaged out, I get 462. Now, if I happen to remove the filter, I am going to get a different average pricing, but this is a very skewed average pricing. So I always have to do this analysis by a certain category or the class of the products, because I can't be comparing very expensive products and very cheap products inside of the company. So I'm just doing this analysis across the accessories right here. Now I'm going to drag the volume impact formula, which is nothing but the average price last year multiplied by the volume difference right here, and that is nothing but my volume impact. And finally, we come to the mixed impact, and the mixed impact is something like this. As compared to the current year, if I compare the current year pricing of the product with the average pricing last year, which is 462, you can see that this particular product is more expensive as compared to all the products put together. That means a more expensive product. Now, how much of extra volume did I sell for the more expensive products as compared to the average pricing last year? So there is going to be a difference of these two, the volume difference. What extra did you sell? At what extra price did you sell as compared to the last year average pricing? And that is nothing but my mix impact. If I just open up the formula, you're going to see that I am doing a volume change. Like, what is the volume change? The difference in the two volumes, current year and the previous year. And I'm also doing the price difference, which is the price of the current year and the average price of the last year. So once I find these two differences, how much has been the change in the price and the volume, I multiply that. Now, this is the core calculation. If you're wondering that what exactly is the values function and the add columns and the sumx, this is just to get my totals right, because I am doing this calculation at the product level, and that's why I want to get the totals right at the bottom. In case you don't know this particular approach to get the totals right, I've done another video on that, and I highly recommend that you please watch that video in order for you to understand that why am I using these wrapper functions around this in order to get the totals right. But the core calculation is just right here. Any which is, I'm going to drag this calculation off to my visual, and that actually gives me the right answer, and this is nothing but my mix impact. Now, if I happen to add these, the price impact, the volume impact, and the mix impact, whatever happens to be my total impact, even at the product level or at the total level, is going to tally up with whatever is the growth number right here. And let's just take a look. So if I happen to just maybe go and total this up, so I just say total impact and I drag that right here, I'm going to see that my total impact is 188,80565, and that is nothing but my total growth as well. Now I can say that how much of this growth, which is this particular number, is tied up to changes in the price of the product, tied up to the changes in the volume of the product, and tied up to the changes in the mix of the product, because we chose to sell more of more expensive products. Now, when it comes to presentation of this particular analysis, you can obviously represent it in a table, but when the management is taking a look at it, they want aggregated numbers. They don't want to take a look at individual products, because you could have hundreds and hundreds of SKUs in the company. So here is another interesting way to present it, through a waterfall chart. So here is what I'm trying to get, and let me just put some imagination into your mind. So let's just say that you have this particular chart, which is your previous year revenue, which is right here. So this is my sales previous year. This number goes in this particular bar. Now this bar and this particular bar, let's just say that you have the current year. This is my current year revenue, and this particular number goes right here in the current year revenue. Now the difference, which is this particular difference right here, all of this difference can be explained by three factors. And the three factors are nothing but your price impact, volume impact, as well as the mix impact. So I'm going to draw these waterfall charts right here. One is going to reflect the price impact, the other one is going to reflect, let's say, the volume impact, and the other one is probably going to affect the, let's say, the mix impact. And once you have been able to take a look at this waterfall chart, you'll be able to find out that what are the contributing factors and what are the factors which are pulling your revenue down, and you might want to work on those. This is a very interesting way, a very, very simple way to take a look at this. Let's just start to create this waterfall chart at the moment. Now note that the difficulty in creating this particular chart is that these three bars, which is the impact of the volume, impact of the price, and impact of the mix, are not columns. They are actually measures. So these three, impact, impact, and impact, are actually measures. And I actually want to put the measures, all of these three measures, in the horizontal axis of the chart. That means here is where all of these three measures are going to go. Now, if you take a look at this particular chart right here, you're going to see that whatever you have on the axis of the chart, that axis needs to be a column of a table. It cannot be a measure. It needs to be a column of the table. So we need to do some trickery, some data modeling trickery, and we need to have those measures as the column of the table and creatively work with DAX in order to place that in the waterfall chart. So like I said, we need to have a table, and the table should have a column, and the column should have the same names of the measures. Let's just go in Power Query and create a table like that, which is going to have 5 values: the revenue previous year, the price change, the volume change, mix change, and as well as the current year revenue. So I'm going to hop over to Power Query, and I'm going to use this enter data option to create a table like this, which is going to have 2 columns. For the first one is the serial number, and the second one is the name of the column. So you can see that we have 5 things. This is the order that I would want. The first one is going to be sales previous year, price effect, volume effect, and mix effect, and the sales of the current year. I'm good to go. I can load this particular table, and let's just see if that gets loaded or not. I can apply the changes, and that table should actually come inside of my Power BI. So here is where my waterfall table is, and I can just take a look. So we have the serial number and the column. Now let's just start to create a chart with this particular table. So I'm going to go ahead and put the column right here, and I'm going to go ahead and convert that into a waterfall chart, which is right here. Now once you have the waterfall chart and we have the 5 values right here, I don't have any number that shows up as a bar or as the height of the bar. And we have already got the calculations. That means we have the sales of the previous year, the sales of the current year that goes right here, and all of the other calculations as well. But we need to place those calculations right here. So I'm going to go ahead and start to write another calculation. And my calculation looks something like this. I'm saying that, hey, why don't you take a look at the horizontal axis? At the moment, it's not visible. So I'm just going to switch it back real quick to a table so that you can see it. I'm just going to switch it back to a table, and I'm going to now show you the measure. And the measure says something like this. It says that, hey, why don't you take a look at whatever is currently visible? And if it's this visible, mix effect is visible, and then you can just write this particular mix impact calculation. If price effect is visible, then you can write this particular calculation, so on and so forth. And that's a very, very simple calculation. All that I'm doing is taking a look at what is visible and then placing that calculation against that metric right here. If I drag this calculation right here, you're going to see that we get the numbers, the mix effect, the price effect, the sales previous year, and so on and so forth. All that I would want to do is convert this into a waterfall chart. So I'm just going to go ahead and convert this into a waterfall chart real quick, and my chart looks something like this. Now, sure enough, I want to sort this chart real quick. So I'm going to go ahead and sort this by the column, and the column itself needs to be sorted in the order that I have. So if I just go to the waterfall table, I'm going to say that this particular column needs to be sorted in the order of serial numbers, and I'm going to do that real quick, and this gets done. All right, once the chart is sorted, you can see that we start with the sales previous year. And if I just also add the labels right here, so if I just click on the chart, add the data labels and turn that on, you're going to see that the data labels are on, and we can also turn off the display units for that, so none, and we have the full numbers appearing. Now we can sure enough have a 0 decimal place against that, and this is kind of good to go. Now if you take a look at the waterfall chart right here, it makes a lot of sense. You can see that my sales last year across accessories was this value, and my sales current year is this particular value, and all of the growth that has happened in between can be contributed largely to volume effect right here and very little mix effect. That means we actually sold cheaper products in the current year, and that's why we have the mix as down. If you take a look at this particular thing, your mix is actually dragged down by this one product that you largely sold, which was cheaper as compared to the average pricing in the current year. So if you take a look at this one, the price current year is 425, and the average price of the products was 462. That means it was cheaper as compared to the last year's average pricing, and you sold a lot of that product. So if you take a look at the previous year volume, it was 3,800 units, and this time it was 44,000 units. And that's why the mix effect is kind of pulling your revenue down right here. You did gain a bit on the volume by selling a lot of the units, but mix wise, that means, are you selling more revenue generating products? The answer is no. You actually sold cheaper products right here. And you can then decide to do this across regions, across categories, across months, across quarters. And this is the way you would kind of do a very basic price volume mix analysis in Power BI. In case you're interested to explore our consulting work, please do not hesitate to reach out via a form. It's really simple. You can just fill it up, and our team is going to call you as soon as possible.